You clicked on this video, you know what we're making here. I'm Sarah, Chief of Making Stuff, and this is Emmy, Chief of Procrastination. So let's get started! For supplies, I have 10 yards of red organza bought at the secondhand craft shop. This red satin left over from my thrift flip Corella costume. I have rose fabric for the lining, and this thrifted dress, which reminds me a lot of Belle's library dress. I started by ironing everything. I cut the skirt off and it feels like a cheap polyester taffeta. Time for the bodice! I grabbed whatever was available as a pattern weight. This is a modified version of Simplicity 8979 that I tailored to myself a long time ago. This is a good base dress for a princess seam and sweetheart neckline. I also cut the pattern out of the lining fabric. It's just a quilting cotton. I used a fusible interfacing to give the satin more body, since this is going to be strapless and I'd rather it not fall down. The instructions say to use a damp press cloth, but I dampened something. They also say to press for 10 to 15 seconds over the whole interfacing. I pinned the bodice pieces together, matching the bottom edges and top edges, and easing it around the curvy parts. And pin the rest of it, and the lining. Now we sew! Now I have two bodices, which is one too many, so I pin and stitch them across the neckline. Because the lining is mostly blue, I understitched the seam allowance to the lining side to encourage it to stay hidden. I ironed this to really keep the lining hidden, adding pins to keep the shape while it fully cools. The base bodice is done. I'm going to leave these pins in. This helps to encourage it to stay this way so that none of the lining peeks out. And I'm going to get started on the skirt. I have two different options I'm thinking about. I just need like a fitted pencil skirt, but I need to make sure that the seams match up with the bottom of this. So I'm going to do a couple drafts and then I will get started on the actual fabric. Yes? You're extremely dramatic. My mock-up was great. I have one tiny modification. I just need to take in one seam by like 1/4 of an inch. So that's ready to go. And I was trying to figure out what mug would go with this project the best when I remembered that my fiance gave me this one for Christmas and it says plant person because it's a rose dress. Get it? I pinned the pattern pieces to the already hemmed edge of the skirt, so no need for hemming. I cut the dress pattern at the waist mark to make it a skirt. Also, since the bodice edge wasn't straight, I had to fit my pieces to the highest points, which looked a little odd here, but it worked out just fine. Man, this looks so much cooler in super speed. I grabbed the front and the side front and pinned them, starting at the hem since I really want that to be even, and pinned up the sides. I'm gonna leave the back half and the front half separate for now because that's the seam that needs to be adjusted to fit me. So now I'm going to stitch these. And I left it on basting mode. I lined up the centers. This seam matches. This is where this seam needs to start. So I need to pin and stitch here. This taffeta frays like crazy, so I serged all the edges. I didn't feel like changing the thread colors, but it's not like I'll be twirling in a full circle skirt here, so it won't show. Also, I sharpied some of them. I ironed the curves with a tailor's ham, pressing all the seams towards the back. The tailor's ham is just for the parts of me that aren't shaped like an ironing board, aka most of me. I was going to hem back the slit with hem tape, which is just an iron-on adhesive, but I can't find it, so I guess maybe it's walk time. Hi, we'll go for a walk? After a very fun weekend full of skating and skiing and playing hockey and some four-wheeling where my dad pointed out that I went like a normal person for about 10 feet and then gunned it and just started drifting, which was very accurate. I'm gonna start working again on this dress. Valentine's Day is coming up quickly, so I gotta get going. I have 3 big chunks with 2 layers each, so there's 6 here. So if I use the lining as the backer, I can get 6 petals out of these large bits. I've had a new plan. I use pinking shears to mimic the edge of the rose leaf, which is, you know, sharp and pointy. And because this stuff frays a lot, I put fray check on it, and it seems to be holding fine. There's no discoloration or anything, so I'm just gonna do that. I didn't mention that the new plan is a single layer leaf and not lined. I grabbed my disappearing ink marker. I grabbed my other disappearing ink marker. I grabbed my tailor's chalk and drew some leaf outlines. I cut them out with pinking shears, which are zigzag scissors to give a serrated edge, just like real rose leaves. I squeezed fray check on all of the raw edges. This took a lot longer than it seems on camera because I only bothered to film one. That first cut was through 4 layers of fabric, so 4 medium-sized leaves. This is also through 4 layers of fabric, but I managed to squeeze 2 smaller outlines on, so 8 small leaves. I cut 2 large leaves for the hips, which left me with a total of 13 leaves, and if that math doesn't add up, it's just because I had an extra one left over. I'm actually very good at math. When the fray check dried, I stitched the veins of the leaves with a light green zigzag stitch. I do want these looking organic and natural, so I didn't trace lines on them. Oh my gosh, this looks so wrinkled. I have never worked with taffeta before, but I did iron it again later. I was just watching an embroidery digitizing tutorial last night about planning your stitch routes well, and I tried to use some of those techniques here where I stitched everything in 2 passes and ended up right where I started. 1 leaf done! 12 more to go. I know this is going to sound unbelievable, but this took a very long time. I have a whole bunch of leaves here, and I know what you're going to ask. Hey Sarah, why is this taking so long? Well, leave me alone. Is that a good joke, Emmy? With my leaf veins stitched out, I started layering. I placed the big ones at my hips, added the medium ones to the blank spaces, and scattered the little ones on top. I did cut an arc onto the larger petals so they would fit my curves. This is starting to get a bit messy, but I like it, so you can take it or leave it. Or leave me your opinion in the comment section. I feel like I need more leaf jokes, but I'm kinda out. Since I ran out of leaf-related humor, I basted all the leaves on and can start looking up flower petal jokes instead. It's petal time! I have sort of a mock-up of a generic petal. I'm gonna do some that are bigger and some that are smaller, especially in the back when it's much taller than this. Speaking of sewing room flowers, my red anthurium was doing so well that I bought a black one! And a pink one. It didn't like the winter weather, but the flowers will come back. I bought 10 yards of organza and used 1 yard for this, but I think I bought too much. It was from the secondhand craft shop though. I cut out 3 petal shapes to start with. This wide one was to fold the edges over. I stitched around them with a vaguely 1/2 inch seam allowance. Remember, organic and natural, not perfect. I turned the seam allowance, turned them right sides out, and ironed. This is the petal that was really wide, so I folded it over to give, more of a blossoming effect. I think I like that better, so I think I'm gonna do mostly the wide ones and then some skinny ones. I'm gonna have to tack these down to get them to stay up because they're very floppy. So I cut out a bunch more petals in various sizes and shapes. I didn't count or measure any of this, so I can't share my patterns with you, but if you do make your own rose dress, tag me on Instagram so I can see it. I started sewing the layers together, but this is going to take forever because I have a ton of petals here, and I know what you're gonna say. Sarah, petal faster! So I jumped into ludicrous speed again and stitched through all the petals. And hey, here's a flower poem I wrote just for you. Roses are red, violets are blue. If you subscribe, I'll make cute content for you. Are we best buds now? Get it? Rosebuds? I'll stop now before I plant any bad joke ideas. The petals are turned right side out and ironed and sorted into piles. There's 4 of the big ones. I didn't count these 2, but there's a bunch of them. Basically, I did the same thing as the skirt where I started with the biggest petals and layered the smaller ones on top. I wanted them to stick out just a bit more over the bodice, except in the armpit area, for obvious reasons. I trimmed the edge and basted the petals onto the bodice. I put a stitch through the top of each petal to keep them from flopping over. I'm trying to look like a blooming rose here and not the one from Beauty and the Beast. Scratchies break! Okay, back to work. I pinned the leaf skirt and the petal bodice together at the waist, trying to align the seams, but honestly you can't see either of them, so it really doesn't matter. I carefully picked the zipper seams until I got impatient. The zipper I harvested from the dress is not an invisible one, so I basted down the back where it goes, ironed the seam flat, and pinned the zipper behind it. I've had much better luck installing invisible zippers than this method, but that's probably just lack of practice from avoiding it. So here's some more practice. This zipper is all basted in and it just needs to be sewn, but someone wants to do something else now, so I gotta go. Later that night, I sewed along each zipper side, including changing thread colors, and removed the basting stitches. After paying the belly rub tax, I hand sewed the lining in. And now for the part you've all been waiting for, my blooming personality. Just kidding. If you enjoyed this video, give me 2 green thumbs up and subscribe to watch more of my sewing adventures. Bye everybody!